In January 2019, a company that rented out shared office desks was valued at $47 billion. That made it worth more than Ford Motor Company, more than General Motors. A company whose entire business model was leasing office buildings and re-renting the desks inside them. By the end of that same year, the company had become a punchline. Its IPO collapsed. Its valuation cratered. Its founder was forced out, walking away with a severance package worth nearly $2 billion, while thousands of employees lost their jobs. This is the story of WeWork, and the man who convinced the smartest investors in the world that he was building something far bigger than office space. If you are new here, don't forget to subscribe Laundered for more such interesting stories on financial crimes. Who was Adam Neumann? Adam Neumann grew up partly on a kibbutz in Israel, a communal living arrangement built on shared resources and collective purpose. That experience would later shape the language he used to describe his company. In 2010, Neumann co-founded WeWork with a simple, practical idea. Rent large office spaces. Divide them into smaller, flexible work areas. Rent those smaller spaces to freelancers, startups, and small businesses who couldn't commit to long-term leases. As a pure business model, this was nothing revolutionary. Companies had offered shared office space for decades. What made Neumann different wasn't the business itself, it was how he talked about it. He didn't describe WeWork as a real estate company, he described it as a movement, a community, a way to elevate the world's consciousness. Investors, particularly in the booming tech startup world of the 2000s, found this language irresistible. The pitch that shouldn't have worked. Neumann's genius, if you can call it that, was convincing investors to value WeWork not as a real estate company, but as a technology company. This distinction mattered enormously. Real estate companies are typically valued at modest multiples of their revenue because the business is capital intensive and growth is naturally limited. Technology companies, particularly fast-growing ones, are valued at wildly higher multiples because investors are betting on exponential future growth. Neumann insisted WeWork was the second kind of company. He talked about physical as a service, about community-driven growth, about data and technology that supposedly made WeWork spaces smarter and more efficient. In 2017, Japanese investment giant SoftBank and its founder, Masayoshi Son, became convinced. In a now infamous 12-minute meeting, Son reportedly told Neumann he needed to be crazier and offered him billions of dollars on the spot. SoftBank would eventually invest more than $10 billion into WeWork. The cult of We. Inside WeWork, Neumann built something that often felt less like a company and more like a movement built around himself. Employees described mandatory company events that resembled music festivals, complete with alcohol, late nights, and Neumann himself often appearing barefoot on stage. He frequently walked through WeWork's own offices without shoes, a habit that became something of his personal trademark. He spoke about WeWork's mission in almost spiritual terms. The company's stated goal wasn't simply to rent office space, it was, in Neumann's own words, to elevate the world's consciousness. Tequila shots reportedly became a fixture of investor meetings and company celebrations. This culture of charisma and excess wasn't incidental. It was central to how Neumann operated and how he raised money. Investors weren't just betting on office space, they were betting on Neumann's personal magnetism and his ability to convince others to believe in his vision. The self-dealing. As WeWork grew, a deeply troubling pattern began to emerge in its corporate structure. Neumann personally purchased several office buildings using his own money. He then leased those same buildings back to WeWork, the company he ran, collecting rental income directly from the business he was supposed to be serving as CEO. This arrangement created an obvious conflict of interest. As WeWork's landlord and as WeWork's CEO, Neumann was financially incentivized to negotiate generous lease terms with himself. He also trademarked the word "we" personally and later sold the rights to that trademark back to his own company for nearly $6 million. Neumann's wife, Rebecca Neumann, held significant influence within the company as well, despite having no formal qualifications in either real estate or corporate management. For years, none of this seemed to slow WeWork down, but it was all sitting there, waiting to be examined. The IPO that exposed everything. In August 2019, WeWork filed the paperwork required to go public, known as an S-1 filing. For the first time, the public, journalists, and skeptical analysts could examine WeWork's actual financials in detail. What they found was alarming. The company was losing enormous amounts of money, nearly $2 billion the previous year alone. The self-dealing arrangements involving Neumann's personally owned buildings were disclosed publicly for the first time. The trademark sale for We was disclosed. Perhaps most damaging, the filing revealed that Neumann had extraordinary, almost unchecked control over the company's board and voting structure, despite the obvious conflicts of interest in his personal dealings. Wall Street analysts and journalists who had previously taken WeWork's $47 billion valuation at face value began openly questioning whether the company was worth even a fraction of that amount. 6 weeks of collapse. What followed was one of the fastest corporate collapses in modern business history. Within weeks of the IPO filing, WeWork's expected valuation was slashed from $47 billion to under $20 billion, then under $15 billion. The IPO, originally planned as one of the most anticipated public offerings of the year, was indefinitely postponed and ultimately withdrawn entirely. SoftBank, WeWork's largest investor, now facing the prospect of losing billions of dollars on its investment, moved to take control of the company and force Neumann out. In just 6 weeks, Adam Neumann went from being celebrated as one of the most visionary founders in tech to being removed from the company he had built. The golden parachute. Here is the part of this story that angered the public most. Despite leading the company to one of the most embarrassing IPO failures in history, despite the self-dealing, despite thousands of employees who would soon lose their jobs in the layoffs that followed, Adam Neumann walked away with an exit package reportedly worth approximately $1.7 billion. SoftBank, desperate to remove him cleanly and regain control of the company it had already invested so heavily in, agreed to buy out his shares, pay him consulting fees, and grant him a substantial loan as part of his departure. Meanwhile, WeWork laid off thousands of employees in the months that followed. The company never recovered its former glory. In 2023, WeWork ultimately filed for bankruptcy. The WeWork story is rarely described using the word fraud in a strictly legal sense. Much of what Neumann did was disclosed, technically legal, and approved by sophisticated investors who should have known better. But the outcome was functionally identical to many of the frauds we've covered on this channel. Billions of dollars in investor capital evaporated. Thousands of employees lost their jobs. And the man at the center of it all walked away enormously wealthy. The lesson: charisma can substitute for substance for a remarkably long time. But eventually, someone has to look at the actual numbers. Subscribe to Laundered for a new financial crime story every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. See you in the next one.